Welcome back to another episode of the CGC Conversation Pieces. I know it's been a while since I talked to you. Uh, let's just say things picked up at my actual job, and since I don't make money off YouTube or depend on YouTube for money, I had to take a step back. But I have been keeping up and paying attention to the games industry and what's been going on inside it, outside it, around it. And I don't know how long this video will be, but let's shoot it and just let's see where it goes. Again, apologies if the audio has quality issues. Still on the market for a new microphone, and I actually should have another one soon. All that aside, the title of this video should be pretty telling about what I want to talk about. I believe I made a video like this before, about a year ago, if not a few months ago. I'm pretty sure it was over a year ago now, though. About Sony not being who I remember them being and being a shadow of themselves. Well, if recent news holds any truth, because mind you, the big rumor going around right now is basically being quote unquote confirmed through a translation. So we don't know to what extent this is true, false, or different from what was actually being said. Uh, the big rumor is that the next action RPG, the one that's slated to be hitting store shelves, I guess sometime next year, Crimson Desert, which is I believe a one-off side story of the Black Desert MMO game. Sony tried to money had it. Sony went to Pearl Abyss, the creators of Crimson Desert and Black Desert, and they tried to give them a check to keep the game off Xbox. This is hot off the heels of Black Myth Wukong, which was previously announced as an Xbox game. Having the developers come out and say, "Oh yeah, the Series S is giving us a problem," or I don't even think they said the Series S was giving a problem. I think they said they were having developmental issues, and then word got out, kind of through Microsoft, because Microsoft kind of slyly mentioned something about, "Oh yeah, we don't comment on our competitors in their deals with their partners." And that was an interesting quote, right? Instead of saying how you felt about it, you just said we don't comment on our competitors and their deals with their partners. That's kind of dry snitching. And then we also know that the game Stellar Blade was originally slated to land on the Xbox as well, and Sony money had it that one into not even coming out on PC. Now, Stellar Blade's sales have reached, I believe, 3 million units. But I think it largely, in my opinion, I know the company's supposedly doing better because they obviously made a profit off of it, but I don't think they made the kind of money they could have, at least with the PC release, right? Like I think if you released that game on PC as well, I think you probably could have sold you probably could have doubled the amount of sales you had. I think that game would have did another 3 million units on PC, maybe 1 to 2 million units on Xbox, maybe. The problem is, um, in their pursuit of, and I've used this term before, maybe I haven't used it in a while, but here we go. In their pursuit of weaponizing what is supposed to be neutral content, because at the end of the day, this game was going to come to PlayStation anyway. There was no reason to pay the developer to not put the game on Xbox or PC unless it was just about you making it look like that either the Xbox couldn't run it or the Xbox, it was never any intention for the Xbox to get the game in the first place by the developer, which is not the case. Because apparently Black Myth Wukong is being listed right now for an Xbox version. That may be a rumor too, but there's a lot of things happening right now, right? And plus, we're getting close towards the end of the year, and before you know it, we'll be in conference season again, which should be interesting next year. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. This version of Sony, while it was successful last gen, and they kind of buried Microsoft with getting games like Neo. I think there were a couple of free to play games that just didn't launch on Xbox because Sony money had them. Uh, Blacklight Tango Down sequel, and that studio was closed now, sadly enough. And then there was another game called Loadout. I remember the tagline for it because I played it. It was a mixture of Looney Tunes and a Quentin Tarantino movie. That studio's closed now because that game only launched on PlayStation as far as consoles is concerned. Sony did a lot of crap like this last gen, and it worked for them, and they're doing a lot of crap like that this gen, and it's not working for the publisher. It may be working for Sony. Oh, look at Sony's lineup of games this year is amazing. They got this game, and they got Final Fantasy. Nobody else had Final Fantasy. They got Stellar Blade. Nobody else got Stellar Blade. They got Ronin, Rise of Ronin. Nobody else got Rise of Ronin. Yeah, but what did that do for Tecmo? What did Final Fantasy VII really do for Square when Final Fantasy is one of the most renowned series in the world? It only sold 3 million units. Final Fantasy 16 as well, for that matter. How does a new game in one of the biggest RPG franchises ever, probably, let's just be serious, the RPG franchise, how does that series sell 3 million units on the newest game release? And when technically, it's not a bad game, so what the hell is the problem? You're stuck on one platform. And again, it does Sony a huge favor because at the end of the day, Sony can sit here and say, we're the only ones who have this game. But if you're Square Enix and you're looking at the numbers, yeah, you got played. You played yourself. You took a check thinking that, we're on PlayStation. We're going to do it. This is the problem logically, and I may not be the smartest man in the world, so you can question my logic if you want to. But logically, the way I've always looked at that stuff is this, and we can sit here and talk all day. Oh, it's business, and fair is fair in business. If you can't, if you're not willing to pay and somebody else is, then you get the game. Fine. Logically speaking, from a developer standpoint, developer / publisher, small publisher, big, whatever. If I'm making a third person narrative-based action game, and you're bringing out a remaster of your third-person narrative-based action game, and two other companies are making third-person narrative-based action games, but you're giving me a check to not put my third-person narrative-based action game on other platforms, who does that really benefit? Right? And Square's finding it out the hard way. It is absolutely stupid to flood one marketplace with the same or similar types of games. And when this company doesn't own you, you allow them to convince you to put your game in their marketplace. And only in their marketplace. You screw yourself. Like, I honestly, and Square Enix is talking about, they're making an about face on this. But honestly, I don't know if that's going to help Final Fantasy at this point. I could be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong because it is a beloved franchise. But like, they released it on PC, and it was a dud. No one cared. Like, dude, this idea that Sony had that they're going to be able to force people to spend $500 or now $800 on a console just to play games that they've locked down is ridiculous. There's too many games that do the exact same thing now. How many, realistically speaking, quality aside, right? And quality isn't necessarily subjective, but the amount of fun you can have on it definitely is if you like the gameplay loop. Quality aside, subjectively speaking, how many games exist? N- Not are just like, but how many games that exist are very similar to Final Fantasy 16? Not just on the PlayStation platform, but on Xbox, on PC, on Switch. For all intents and purposes, a third person narrative based action game with RPG elements is not hard to find. You literally you could walk in a metaphorical room of video games and trip over like 5 or 6 before you take uh, a step 5 foot into that room, right? Like there's a ton of them. So this idea that yours is special and this lie that apparently Sony is telling these publishers that yours is special and you'll help us sell a bunch of PlayStations. Yeah, but you'll help them sell a bunch of PlayStations, but you're not going to sell a bunch of units. 60 plus million PS5s, 3 million copies sold of Final Fantasy 16. That's a damn shame. That doesn't make any sense, right? And apparently, according to this translation, getting back to that, Sony tried to get Pearl Abyss to do the same thing, which is funny because Pearl Abyss' first foray into console gaming was them launching the beta of Black Desert on the Xbox One, I believe. So when you think about that, you have to ask yourself, are companies starting to get smarter? Are companies starting to wake up? You see a mighty titan like Square Enix struggle financially because they're giving this particular company, exclusive carte blanche to their games, and these games aren't selling. One might start to question the validity of doing such a thing. And it makes sense. And I'm happy that if this whole thing ends up being true, that Pearl Abyss has some sense and say, hell no, we're not giving you our game exclusively. And I believe the translated quote was, we stand to make more money and benefit more financially by releasing our game everywhere we originally intended to release it. And good on them for coming to that conclusion. It hurts smaller developers when Sony pulls this crap. And I know people are going to say, well, Black Myth Wukong did so well and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay. Black Myth Wukong and Power World are exceptions in and of the fact that largely those games were carried by PC players. PC players bought the most copies of those games, right? Power World largely, more than likely, didn't benefit from being exclusive to Xbox, but that was more so, I believe, and I don't know for sure. That's a cultural thing with Sony, right? Sony really doesn't like to do early access games. They notoriously have stated that they're not into early access games, and Power World launched early access, which is why Xbox had it first. I don't think they money had it that game. I could be wrong though. But like in the case of Black Myth Wukong, this is the story of the Monkey King. This is the mythological character that Dragon Ball is based off of. This is very popular in China. And if you look at the sales, the PC version sold the most because PCs are big in China. I think PlayStation is too. I know consoles are a relatively new thing to that region, but I'm pretty sure the PC version carried in China as it did worldwide in large. By and large, the PC version is one that really sold the most units. That plus is based off a very popular uh, Chinese myth, so it was going to do well, especially if it was executed at a decent level, which it appears it is. So outside of anomalies like your Power Worlds and your Black Myth Wukongs, which again were carried by PC, and then something that Sony does own like Helldivers 2, which again was largely carried by PC players, and still to this day the population is mostly PC players. You know what's alarming is that today some more news came out, right? Because I believe the whole Pearl Abyss rejecting Sony's offer was yesterday. But apparently, word has it that the team who created Horizon Zero Dawn, the game you're seeing here, Guerrilla, is done with the franchise that kind of put them in the eyes of the gaming community, which is Killzone. The dubbed Halo Killer, Halo Destroyer, which obviously it never was that, but it was still a solid set of games, regardless. They're done with it, right? They've pretty much said we weren't going to make any more. Now that could change, obviously things change, but I believe that what has killed Sony in my eyes and in my eyes of many others, obviously, is the fact that they aren't the same anymore because they've gotten too used to the idea of filling in the gaps of their release schedule with other people's games and saying and acting as if those games are theirs. Again, the weaponizing of neutral content. Because at the end of the day, for the PlayStation gamer, there was no reason to make this game exclusive to the PlayStation. You were going to get it anyway. But I don't, as a person who owns a PlayStation and barely cuts the damn thing on, it's problematic that you guys can, and by you guys I mean PlayStation as the company, you guys can throw checks at a company like Pearl Abyss and try to get them to make their game exclusive to your platform, but you can't decide on whether or not Twisted Metal deserves a new game. You can't get out Factions 2 because you wanted Naughty Dog to turn it into this live service thing when really all anybody really wanted, if you're going by, just talking heads on the internet, and this guy personally, me, who played Factions 1, like, just make it a multiplayer game that you add maps to occasionally, and you can sell us map packs. I don't care, right? But like, we just wanted the multiplayer. It didn't need to be this grandiose MMO thing. It didn't need to try and be something like State of Decay. It just needed to be more of part one. And then you go ahead and put a survival mode in I think it was the remaster of uh, The Last of Us 2. And the way that mode plays from a gameplay perspective, that's all you really had to do with. That's all you had to do with the Last of Us 2 multiplayer. Just make it so that people are playing against each other doing that same thing. You literally designed the game that people wanted. You just made it single player and as a throwaway add-on for a remaster no one asked for. And this is the problem, right? Like, and I believe Hiroki Todoki said it himself. They have not fostered any of their franchises. Like the fact that Microsoft owns Crash and Spyro, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of licensed stuff because it went through Vivendi, and then Vivendi merged with Activision, and then of course Microsoft bought Activision, which is how they ended up with it. But it's like the fact that you were willing to throw something away that essentially was your rival to, you know, Mario. It never matched Mario, but I think Crash did a pretty damn good job of being a relevant mascot for your company for a while, and so was Spyro, and you just let them fly. And being honest, like, Sony's always done this crap, right? going back to their original launch, they spent millions of dollars. And this is on the documentary. They spent millions of dollars to get companies to put games on PlayStation, and in some cases, not put games anywhere else. Like the first couple of Tekkens, up to 5, were not on any other platform but PlayStation. So they've always done crap like this. But the difference was, because I think Tekken 5 was PS2, and it was PS2, PSP, and I think there was like a downloadable version for the PS3 early on, which was like Dark Resurrection. I played a lot of Tekken 5. But from PS1, PSP, PS2, they were very, and even parts of PS3, let's just even say PS3, they were very much gung ho on, no, our team needs to be able to make games, and we'll spend money to have stuff come out on our platform, but we're more so concerned about our guys making really good games too. And it's whittled from that to, well, let's pay company X and company Y to put their game only on our platform and block the Xbox version or the PC version for like 6 months to a year, so it'll look like the game belongs to us, and then by the time it does launch on those platforms, it's weakened. It's like, and how studios don't understand, like, if Sony is coming to you saying you should put your game only on our platforms, like, your counter argument should be, you should give us a check so that you can buy it, because the way you're going to market it, you're going to make it look like it's synonymous with PlayStation, and by the time I am actually able to port this game to another machine, no one's gonna give a shit, because if they haven't bought a PlayStation to play it, they're gonna just be remiss to even care, because they'll move on to something else. Not having a game that does not belong to Sony or Xbox or Nintendo, having that game locked to their platforms and then releasing it 6 months to a year later, potentially hurts those games so much. You hurt your bottom line so much doing that crap. And even indie developers need to understand that. Like, I understand that, the check is enticing. You've never seen that much money before. You never could have fathomed being able to fund your game on that level, or fund your next game on that level, because these guys are just instantly giving you a whole, bag of cash to work with. But you are harming not only the long-term potential of your own franchise or IP, you are marginalizing what your fan base could be for that game. And the only ones that benefit is them, because they get to take your game that you and your team made and add it as a notch to their belt as if they made it themselves. And in the course of doing this, Sony has gotten so lazy and just, I don't know, the word escapes me at the moment. They've gotten so lazy and so blasé about their own franchises that now they just lack the creative juices to do anything else. How many goddamn remakes are they going to publish? They're literally just remaking the entire PS4 library and selling it to people. And there's dudes out here who claim to be ponies or PlayStation fans or whatever the hell, and they're okay with that shit. You cannot tell me that this is okay, when the vast majority of this console's library is literally games you just spent the last 7 years, 2013 to 2020, playing. The vast majority of large games are just that. That's not okay. And I don't give a, you can sit here and talk about Xbox and what they've done and what they haven't done. We ain't talking about Xbox. I ain't doing whataboutisms right now. There's plenty of bad stuff Xbox has been doing, is doing. There's plenty of things they can fix. But Sony is whack as hell now. Sony as a video game brand is lame, because they've gotten so used to this idea of, let them make it and we'll just give them money for it. No, motherfucker, you should be making Twisted Metal. Where's our Jet Moto? Where's the new Killzone? You want a shooter so bad. You threw Concord out there, which I bought for $60, got my $60 back because I bought it digitally. But you threw Concord out there, even though people were telling you at large, we don't want this shit. You threw it out there to die. You probably gonna relaunch it as a free to play, right? But you literally could just put Killzone out there. You wouldn't have to worry about Call of Duty. You'll still have Call of Duty, but you could be making Killzone. You could be making SOCOM. Sony has franchises that won't necessarily beat a Halo, even though beating Halo is not a big deal now, like it was 20 years ago. But you literally have franchises that could compete with a Halo, compete with a Call of Duty, compete with a Battlefield, compete with a Rainbow Six. You have those games. Hell, in some cases, the games you made were more prominent in that genre first. I remember SOCOM being a big deal well before Call of Duty was. I remember SOCOM essentially being the equivalent of Halo. It was, I believe SOCOM was the first online shooter on a console in that generation. Unless you count like Quake 3 on the Dreamcast, which technically was a part of that generation. But you get my point. Like, I remember of the Alive consoles, because Dreamcast was dead at that point. I remember SOCOM being the first online game because they launched SOCOM with the network adapter before Microsoft launched Xbox Live with Halo 2. And you abandoned it to give Activision money for fucking creator class slots in shitty modes a year exclusive in their game. It's ludicrous. You would be remiss to say that Sony has lost the plot. Right? They've gotten so used to being able to throw a check at this company. Okay, boom, we got a first person shooter this year, and we didn't have to make it. And it's like, dude, just save that money and make your own damn game. Just save that money and make your own damn game. There's no reason that franchises like, again, Twisted Metals, Jet Motos, Wipeouts, you can't make Crash Bandicoot or Spyro, but you can make Ratchet and Clank still. So apparently Insomniac's just a fucking Marvel company now. And where's Jack and Daxter? Where the hell's Jack and Daxter at? Where's Sly Cooper? Like, Microsoft not making a Banjo-Kazooie is one thing. They really only made one, and it was something that I guess a lot of people largely didn't like. And I honestly, as far as Microsoft and Banjo-Kazooie, because I know there was a big thing with Aaron Greenberg apparently sarcastically saying something that was taken out of translation. But like, I honestly believe Microsoft when they say they're waiting to find the right team to make that game. But Sony just like, you don't hear about it. It's like Jack and Daxter never existed. It's like Jack and Daxter never existed. It's like Twisted Metal never existed outside of a fucking TV show on NBC. It's like Wipeout never existed. Like, dude, where's Warhawk? That was PlayStation's Star Fox. Where's Warhawk at? And then you turned it into a Battlefield game that was actually pretty decent too. Where is that? Where's Infamous? Like, there's a ton of. Where's the game? Gosh, where you run around and you catch the monkeys in the net. Where the hell's that game at? Where's you closed down the Japanese studios. I was going to say where's the Getaway sequel at, but you closed down the London studios. You closed down the Japanese and the London studios, so you're probably not getting those games right. Outside of whatever the Astrobot team is willing to make, this is a problem. You all have money headed yourselves into a complete and utter corner. And now that the industry is on a downturn and people are losing more jobs than they're getting, how the hell are you going to build the studios to make those games? Maybe Jim Ryan was right. Maybe when he was flying around and trying to convince people that Activision being bought by Microsoft was extremely detrimental to Sony. Maybe he was right because he understood that they had turned their culture, they had bastardized it and turned it into this leech of a culture that only gets by on other people's products. Like every once in a while, we'll make a big hit game that people like, and it's usually because it's based on either an hyper established IP that we made or something somebody else makes. Because let's just be serious, Marvel and Spider-Man and Wolverine ain't even really theirs. They have the license to use them exclusively, but they didn't make any of that shit. They didn't make any of that shit, right? They made Kratos and God of War. They made The Last of Us and Ellie and Joel, one of which they've killed off. Sorry if you haven't played the second game yet. That's the stuff they made. And they're even like bastardizing that. And then I also had to take a step back because I was watching God, what's this guy's name? VG Fight School. Very, very smart YouTuber. Really just caught on to his videos. Give him a follow if you get a chance. He's very logical. He's not a grifter. He speaks from a very logistical standpoint, and he's an aspiring game developer himself, and he gets it. He understands why a lot of this stuff is a problem. So I'm looking at the fact that this Spider-Man 2 game, because everybody's up in arms about this, right? It's launching on PC in January. So like 2 months from now, 3 months. Not only is it launching on on PC, only a year and like 3 months or so from its initial release on PlayStation, which means that staggered release window is getting smaller, and eventually and inevitably Sony will be day and date, and they're honestly, for financial reasons, they're going to need to be, right? Because they're getting cooked right now. This game is coming out on PC, and it will have no DLC. So, like, the first Spider-Man game had, like, Silver Sable, I think Green Goblin, and something else. I own those DLCs. I've never played them. I'm ashamed of myself, but it's the truth. And we went from the first game and how robust the DLC was to the point where one of the DLCs was turned into an actual game, because you can't convince me Miles Morales was supposed to be a whole singular game, right? To now, we're talking about just this game coming out. And if you think about it, outside of Returnal, this is the only PlayStation game that was only made for PS5 or wasn't a remake. And I bring this up because it shows you how bad Sony is now. Think about this. You can bring up Demon Souls. Demon Souls is a remake of a PS3 game. It's a fucking remake. So let's just move that aside, because for all intents and purposes, a lot of people who bought that or interested in it had already played it 2 generations ago. Returnal was a genuinely brand new title, and I believe at first that game was going to come out on PS4 as well, because there's a PS4 file for it out there somewhere. But everything else, Horizon Forbidden West, God of War Ragnarok, those are PS4 games. You can buy those games on the PS4. So your first big, and maybe I'm missing something, and I know Astrobot is a PS5 only game, but I feel like maybe I'm missing something. But everything else they've made has come out on PS4. Your first big major release that does not have a PS4 version, and if you go look at videos, because there's 1,000,001 of them, at the early launch performance issues of Spider-Man 2, that's what you put out. The great Insomniac puts out a game that is an absolute buggy mess to the point where it is game breaking. You can't even play the damn thing. Now, obviously, it's patched and it's much better now, much better state now than it was back then. But it's like that was your first major PS5 only release, and it worked like dog shit. And you're telling me things are okay with them, especially after now Microsoft does own Activision. And you got the talking heads talking about, well, Microsoft's going full third party. Yeah, because they understand they can make more money that way. You make more money putting the game everywhere than you do keeping the game in one spot. It's fucking stupid. It's absolutely stupid. And Sony knows that it just makes them look good to lock a game on their platform. But it's also made them very lazy. You can't tell me somebody at PlayStation can't come out with a new Twisted Metal game. You can't tell me you can't put a team together to do that. I don't believe it. I don't believe that there's no studio there that can make a new Jack and Daxter game. So Naughty Dog went from this versatile team that could make everything from fighting games, because they do have a fighting game on 3DO. It was a Mortal Kombat clone, but it is a fighting game. They went from being able to make fighting games, platformers, and action games to now they just make realistic melodrama games with zombies in it. Because honestly, I don't even think that these motherfuckers are going to let them make another Uncharted. Uncharted doesn't have a hit TV show. Uncharted has a movie that flopped. They don't have a hit TV show. So what are the chances that they're going to let them make another Uncharted anytime soon? It's probably going to be The Last of Us. And I think there's either a sci-fi or medieval game that Naughty Dog is supposed to be building. And if that game doesn't pop off in some multimedia level, what's the chance we get another one of those? It'll probably be, yeah, go back to The Last of Us, because season 2 just did real well on HBO. Sony's trash, dude. And I'm not saying that Microsoft is that much better, but shit, at least Microsoft has a diverse portfolio and their teams are actually making different games. They didn't abandon Gears of War. Gears of War may have fell off. They didn't abandon it. They didn't abandon Halo. Halo fell off. They didn't abandon it. As a matter of fact, it looks to be reinvigorated. Time to tell on that, but they didn't abandon it. They didn't abandon Fable. It took some time off, but a new game's coming out next fucking year. All of that stuff they were making before, they are still making, generally speaking, and they're adding more to it. And I wouldn't be surprised if Banjo-Kazooie ends up with a developer sometime soon. This is a problem. They spent all of this time money hacking games trying to bury this company they thought wasn't going to fight back, and now they've awoken a juggernaut. And they're not doing the same stupid stuff you're doing. They're not saying, oh, yeah, we're not going to make this game anymore. Hell, Perfect Dark is coming back, dude. Sony better wake up. You like if the next PlayStation Showcase, which there hasn't been a real one in over a year now, if that next one ain't got, I need a Jet Moto trailer. I need a Wipeout trailer. I need a Twisted Metal trailer. You know what I'm saying? I need something. You better show me a goddamn SOCOM logo. You know what I'm saying? Like, because Nintendo and Microsoft are cultivating their old franchises. They understand what got them to the dance. You guys don't. And when Microsoft spent $70 billion to keep you from money having features in a game you thought you would have in your back pocket forever, now you're cooked. What's even worse is like, okay, so now Bungie is pretty much dead. They, word has it that everything is pretty much being absorbed into PlayStation, which means now you own Destiny and Marathon, and that's cool. It would be really good if Destiny was what it used to be. It clearly is not. And this is a person who's put 1,000 hours in Destiny 1. Funny enough, after Bungie left Activision, Destiny 2 fell off. It hasn't been the same since. And I've spoken to you guys before. I really believe most of those teams at Activision made that Destiny game. And mark my words, you can bookmark this quote, that Elsewhere studio and the game they're making, that's that MMO I told you guys about in my previous videos. That's that MMO light that Microsoft really bought Activision for. That's the game. Mark my words on that. It is what's that the company? They're a multimedia video game company, meaning that they're gonna make something that's probably across comic books, books, cartoons, TV, movies, and obviously a game. Mark my words, that Elseworlds game, whatever that Elseworlds team is building, that's going to be the thing that truly measures how much the Activision deal was worth, because they've been building that for years. And Microsoft built them their own little studio to go ahead and cultivate that thing. That's going to be the next big, huge thing. That's going to be what Destiny should be now and what Destiny should have been, but no longer is. And I just got a feeling, and I'm going to close on this. I got a feeling that even with Sony absorbing Bungie, this is going to do something fucking stupid, right? Like, make Destiny 3 exclusive, which is about as dumb as Microsoft buying Activision and making Call of Duty exclusive. Like, so fuck all of that money you could be making over here. You just want to say it's in your back pocket. I wouldn't be surprised if they pull the trigger on Marathon being exclusive, if it even comes out. I don't know, man. Like, Sony they went full Forrest Gump with this whole money hatting thing, and now it's biting them in the ass. And I don't know if they're going to be able to pull themselves out of this one. It's a rough spot, but we shall see. I hope to be talking to you guys much more often. I was going to simplify this format so I can get these video out sooner, because I have a feeling that, especially after this Friday, things are really going to pick up as far as news and obviously grifting and everything else. It should be an interesting time, and best believe I'm going to be here for it with you. Anyway, have a blessed one, and I'll catch you in the next video. Like, comment, subscribe if you feel so obliged to do so. Later.